Hi, Sarah Nicholson here with Nicholson Tutoring to offer you another quick test prep video. Today, I want to give you an overview of the new digital SAT and what that will mean for you, the test taker. If you look at your screen, I've given you a rundown of the test, but there are three major changes that I want you to be aware of. The first is the format. This is now a digital test. When they roll this test out in March, there will be no more pencil and paper test. You will have to take the test online. The second is that it's a significantly shorter test. If you look at the screen, you'll see you get two verbal modules, each about 30 minutes, followed by a 10-minute break, followed by two math modules, also each about 30 minutes. So the running time of this test is now just over an hour, which is hugely different. The third big difference is that this is an adaptive test. It's adaptive by section. And I'll explain what that means both for your testing day and for your score in just a second. If we look at what they've kept and what they've changed, in the verbal section, what used to be two separate sections, you used to see a reading comprehension section followed by a writing and language section. That has been blended into a single verbal module that contains reading comprehension elements and grammar elements. The concepts being tested are still very similar. You'll see punctuation, verb format, editing questions. Those grammar concepts are alive and well. Similarly, reading comprehension questions that ask you to find the main idea of a passage or ask you for the function of a particular detail in a passage. All of those things remain. What's new is you'll see a greater emphasis on sentence completion. Don't worry, this isn't returning to the sentence completions of 10 years ago that had really esoteric vocabulary. It's much more a testing of words that you probably know, but you're being tested on the context in which they can be best used. So primary, secondary, sometimes tertiary definitions. A really big change is that you won't see those very lengthy passages anymore. You have maybe a paragraph or two paragraphs tied to a single question. So not only do you not have the lengthy passages, you don't have multiple questions tied to the same passage. So it's one question for one shorter passage, rinse and repeat. You might see poems. So I just want to throw that out there. Sometimes that's students don't like poetry so much. It's not going to be as bad as you think, but you might see a short poem instead of a narrative passage. In the math section, you're going to see a lot of the same. You're going to see very similar math topics tested to what we know from the previous test. You're also going to have that same format of multiple choice questions and free response. The pencil and paper test had grid-in questions at the end of each section when you would write your numerical answer in and then bubble the corresponding bubbles in. You'll see this as free response where you have to generate the answer and then type it in. What's very different is you will have a calculator for the entire test. For both math modules, you're allowed to use the calculator the entire time. And it will be an on-screen calculator that really looks a lot like Desmos, if that's something that you have used in school, or if not, think about your capabilities of your TI-84. Very, very powerful tool. Great that students have it for the whole time. Make sure that you know how to use it, okay? Because that is a huge difference. Additionally, you're going to see fewer words throughout the whole test, but particularly in the math section. That doesn't mean you're not going to see word problems. Word problems are alive and well, as I think they always will be, but they're not these multi-paragraph word problems. Let's talk about what the adaptive nature of the test means. All right, this test is adaptive by section, which means that the first module you see, it contains easy, medium, and hard questions. You can move throughout that section as you want. You don't have to work in numerical order. You do have to stay within that one module until the time is up. But the module 2 that you see is going to be based entirely on your accuracy in module 1. So if you have very high accuracy in module 1, you will generate a harder module 2. If you have lower accuracy in module 1, you'll generate an easier module 2. This is critical to note for 2 reasons. The first is that your score is tied to the difficulty level of that second module you generate. If you generate the easier module 2, you've capped your score potential, okay? Even if you generate the harder module 2 and don't do as well in it, you're better off, which can feel paradoxical, okay? So that means a couple of things. You want to be as accurate as possible in that first module so that you can generate that harder module 2 and not artificially cap your score. The other piece here is understanding that you could see a significant change in difficulty between the first and the second modules, and seeing something harder isn't necessarily bad. It's actually really good. If you generate that harder second module and you're thinking, wow, these questions are getting really hard, I don't feel like I'm doing as well. Remember, no, that means I generated the harder module 2. I'm automatically better off here, and sort of embrace that difficulty. Okay, so understanding that that is fluid depending on your performance in the first module is really important. So pros and cons. Maybe it's a little silly to discuss because really come March of 2024, this is your only option if you want to take the SAT, is the digital version. So it's coming whether we want it or not. But for now, at the end of 2023, if you're trying to figure out kind of how do I take the pencil and paper test? Do I wait for the digital? What do I do? It's just helpful to understand, kind of pluses and minuses here. So big plus, the test is shorter. It's great. It's easier to focus for a shorter amount of time. The downside to that is that your accuracy is going to need to be on, because the fewer questions you have, the more each one counts. Okay. The other downside, and this is obviously just temporary, there aren't a lot of practice materials available for this new test. College Board has released 4 full-length practice tests, which are all available on their website. But you need to be careful how you use them. If you burn through those tests too quickly, you're going to find yourself without things to practice right before your test date. The other issue with that is we have really limited data on raw to scaled score conversion. So it can be really hard to gauge how your accuracy on these practice tests might translate to what you actually see on test day and what your score is going to be. An easy way to mitigate that is just to plan for multiple test dates. Give yourself as many opportunities as possible to get the score that you want. Timeline here, there are 2 more paper and pencil tests left for 2023. And after that, you're digital only. They have released, College Board has released March, May, and June dates. And then, they're assumed in August and beyond, but that's something that you can check on their website when they finalize that. For more information about any of these issues and so much more, please feel free to visit my website at www.nicholsontutoring.com. And thanks for listening.